We live in an age of endless information. News travels fast, opinions travel faster, but clarity is rare. Every day, stories are told, but what they mean and why they matter is often lost. ClearPath Media was created to change that. We explain what's happening and what it means.
ClearPath Media is built for understanding. In a time when information is instant, but clarity is scarce, serious explanation has become rare. We exist to restore it.
If you're tired of headlines without depth
and conversations without substance,
then welcome to the right place.
This is not just a media channel. It is a platform for insight, a space for informed thinking, a clearer way to understand Africa. ClearPath Media. Africa Explained.
Clarity for changing Nigeria. Nigeria is changing really fast. The world is changing even faster. And in a noisy environment, clarity becomes a public service. This is OsitaInsights on ClearPath Media. Across Nigeria today, a familiar sentiment is often heard. People say the economy is growing somewhere, but not in their lives. Businesses expand. Large projects are announced. Corporate profits are reported. Unprecedented corporate profits. Yet for many citizens, the sense remains that the benefits of economic activity pass them by. So it creates a very powerful question. But the real question may not simply be whether the economy is working. The deeper question is this: who actually owns the Nigerian economy? Because in every society, ownership determines who ultimately benefits from goods. When Nigerians think about economic participation, the conversation usually centers on jobs, salaries, or government programs. These are important, but there is another layer of economic participation that receives far less attention: asset ownership. Ownership of companies, ownership of investment funds, ownership of financial assets that grow as the economy expands. Across the world, one of the most important vehicles through which citizens participate in economic growth is pension investments. In Nigeria today, pension assets have grown significantly since the pension reforms of 2004. According to the Pension Commission, total pension assets now exceeds 22 trillion naira. 22 trillion. This represents one of the largest pools of long-term domestic capital in the country. Yet, the way these funds are invested tells an important story. Only about 10%, yes, say that again, 10% of Nigerian pension assets are invested in equities, shares of companies listed on the stock exchange. The overwhelming majority remains invested in government securities and fixed income instruments. These investments are relatively safe, but they also mean that citizens participate only marginally in the ownership of productive companies that drive economic expansion. To understand why this matters, it helps to look at how citizen ownership works in other economies. In many advanced economies, pension funds are not just saving vehicles, they are major owners of national companies. In countries such as the United States, the United Kingdom, Canada, and Australia, pension funds and institutional investors often hold between 40 and 60% of the stock market. This means that when companies grow, when productivity increases, when markets expand, citizens indirectly benefit through their pension assets and investment funds. Economic growth therefore translates into household wealth accumulation. Nigeria's situation is different. 3 structural gaps shape this outcome. First is limited citizen participation in capital markets. Only a small proportion of Nigerians actively invest in equities or collective investment funds. The stock market remains distant from everyday financial life for most households. Second is weak financial literacy and long-term savings culture. Many citizens understandably prioritize immediate economic survival over long-term investment planning. As a result, participation in asset-building mechanisms remains low. The third is institutional investment conservatism. Because pension funds prioritize safety and regulatory compliance, they allocate a very large share of assets to government securities. While this protects capital, it also concentrates national savings in financing government debt rather than expanding citizen ownership of productive enterprises. Taken together, these patterns produce what we might call an ownership gap. The economy may grow, but the mechanisms that translate growth into broad citizen wealth remains underdeveloped. When ownership is narrow, the effects become visible in everyday economic life. Citizens rely primarily on wages and informal income rather than financial assets. This means that when inflation rises or economic conditions tighten, households have very few financial buffers. In economies where citizens hold diversified investment assets through pensions, mutual funds, or retirement accounts, wealth grows alongside national productivity. In Nigeria, however, economic expansion often does not translate into household asset growth. As a result, citizens can feel disconnected from national economic performance. Growth appears abstract. Prosperity feels distant. This leads to an important insight. Nations do not become broadly prosperous only when their economies grow. They become prosperous when their citizens own the engines of that growth. Ownership transforms economic activity into shared wealth. Without ownership, growth can remain concentrated and distant from everyday life. Closing the ownership gap will require gradual but deliberate institutional evolution. And the first thing we need to do is Nigeria's capital market must deepen, creating more opportunities for citizens and pension funds to invest in productive enterprises. Second, financial education must expand so that more households understand the role of long-term savings and investment in wealth creation. And thirdly, investment frameworks can gradually encourage greater diversification of pension assets into sectors that support economic expansion while still maintaining prudent risk management. None of these changes can occur overnight, but over time, they shape whether citizens participate only as workers in the economy or also as owners. Every economy produces wealth. The deeper question is always who participates in owning it. As Nigeria continues to reform and modernize its financial system, expanding citizens' ownership may become one of the most important bridges between national growth and everyday prosperity. Because when citizens own a stake in the economy's success, growth no longer feels distant. It becomes shared. I am Osita Chidoka, and this is OsitaInsights on ClearPath Media, where we pause, think clearly, and choose wisely. Thank you for listening.
We live in an age of endless information. News travels fast, opinions travel faster, but clarity is rare. Every day, stories are told, but what they mean and why they matter is often lost. ClearPath Media was created to change that. We explain what's happening and what it means.
ClearPath Media is built for understanding. In a time when information is instant, but clarity is scarce, serious explanation has become rare. We exist to restore it.
If you're tired of headlines without depth,
And conversations without substance.
then welcome to the right place.
This is not just a media channel. It is a platform for insight, a space for informed thinking, a clearer way to understand Africa. ClearPath Media. Africa Explained.